Witajcie, tu Ula Kamińska i 30 000 dni. Zapraszam Was na drugą część rozmowy z Devaraj. Zapraszam Was również do rozpoczęcia praktyki ćwiczeń z obszaru bioenergetyki, o których mówi Devaraj. Możecie znaleźć je wchodząc na kanał na YouTubie Devaraj i link do tego kanału będzie pod tym nagraniem w opisie lub wpisując w przeglądarkę czy na YouTube hasło bioenergetyka lub ćwiczenia Lowena. Zapraszam Was do tej praktyki, chociaż kilka minut dziennie naprawdę można uzyskać niesamowite efekty. Zapraszam Was do polubienia tego nagrania lub do niepolubienia, do podzielenia się nim, do subskrybowania kanału. Zostawcie również proszę swój komentarz pod tym nagraniem i mam nadzieję, że znajdziecie tutaj dużo fajnych rzeczy dla siebie. Ściskam Was bardzo. Pa.
It's not getting as much popular like it should be. I think it would be really helpful for all society if we would just release all this trauma. I think we would have different societies and communities. That would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. It would be great. I mean, at Osho Lila, there's quite a lot. There's a thing called the Lila Life Training, which I'm involved with, which is like 9 weekend workshops that you sign up to, and you come along once a month to a weekend workshop, and the same people will go on a journey through those 9 workshops. That's quite a powerful process to go on. When I started to do workshops 20 years ago, when I tell my mum or my dad, my adopted parents, they'd be kind of worried about it, like, oh God, going to do these kind of things. But like, about a decade later, then they're kind of more relaxed. It became a little more comfortable to talk about your issues, to accept that maybe your childhood wasn't perfect, and to look at what you can do to release the past. But yeah, for sure, the society hasn't really moved on super much, but it's still possible. If you want it, you can still find it and you can get
yeah. And the first thing is just to I think talk about it more, and I think you're doing really great job. You've got now more than 300 videos, I think. Yeah, and I think it's amazing because you just share that for free with people, and that's why it's possible for, I think, many people just to do that daily practice at home, because I know how to do it. Is there anything that people coming to you that it's the most common problem?
I mean, a lot of people have got a basic level of anxiety, which is which is affecting their life a lot. Coming up when they're trying to. I get a lot of young guys who want to approach women, but they get very anxious. A lot of people with anxiety. I get people suffering depression and stuff like this. I get quite a lot of people who've got what's called ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. That's a little bit heavier. I mean, I would say anxiety is probably the most common thing that people come with. Or generally, just often they come to me because they've got an area of their body where they're really aware it's very, very stiff. Or they've got an area of their life where they feel like they're really stuck. They're really stuck and they don't seem to be able to move beyond it. Most of the stuff I'm working with is just normal kind of social issues that individuals are aware they've got, feeling like they're totally under control or a bit robotic and wanting to let go and feel more free,
When there are people with, let's say, depression and anxiety, do they have to do different things, or it's like everybody has to do the same because it's working for any syndrome, or it doesn't matter what it is, depression or anxiety, or you would recommend different things for different stuff,
I generally kind of make it a little bit personal to people, so I'll listen to their story about, let them talk about themselves and what's really going on in their life, and a little bit, if they've got any, major injuries or stuff, or big kind of physical trauma, anything like that. And then, with anxiety, the bow and the arch is always a good start to get into that, and that will slowly release, because anxiety is mostly coming from a big charge being held in the lower back or the backs of the legs, in my experience. And as you slowly start to get that charge out, it's like someone's anxiety level slowly starts to decrease. That happens over a period of months. But, if they get started with the bow and arch, and if they can keep going with it all the way through, then it will start to take the anxiety out. I also work quite a lot with the belly, getting people to a bit more centered in the belly, where they can feel more okay with themselves as they are. You know, when you have, most people tend to live a lot up in the head with thinking about everything. And, you know, often it creates a lot of tension and control, you know, having to always think about stuff.
Yeah, so how to stop that compulsive thinking, how to deal with this? Because I think you are very right, because sometimes I think like it's destroying people's life, that compulsive thinking, because like thoughts are always followed by emotions. So if I have that compulsive thinking going on in my head all the time, it's like it just creates the anxiety.
Yeah.
Yes. How to stop this, you know, what to do with it.
You have to kind of open up at a throat level, because if you just look at the body, you know, it's like when too much awareness has gone up into the head and it kind of can't come back down again, that's what it usually is, a bit of a blockage here, you know. It's like a kind of, so your awareness got trapped up here and you can't really get it back down. So working at a throat level or a belly level is good with certain exercises to try and start to open up the throat a bit and open up the belly a bit. You know, it's quite intense to work in these areas, but they slowly allow you, so you can get up in your head and really do stuff on computer, but then when you need to take a break, you can kind of really let go, and your awareness can fall into your body more, you know, because that's where it's really supposed to be.
Let's say I would experience that compulsive thinking that makes me feel anxious, and then I would do some bioenergetic exercises. I could experience that my head is calming down.
Yeah, I mean, the old thought patterns will always be there, you know, it's unrealistic, but when they don't have such a pull on you anymore, you know, we can have a lot of thoughts going on, but it's only when we really get engaged with them, you know, and busy with them, that they create drama and trouble. And they're usually pointing at something in the body anyway, you know, they're pointing at something, they're trying to pull you in a certain direction. So, you know, slowly opening up the body with bioenergetics, maybe going to some emotional expression workshops, you will notice that you become more calm over time.
So what is the main difference between bioenergetic and emotional releasing exercises, what you were mentioning? What is the main difference?
Well, emotional expression exercises, you mostly, for them to be effective, you normally do them as part of group therapy, really, you know, so you do them with other people, and, you know, exercise where you really fully go into anger in a kind of held, safe space. It's good. You know, it's stuff you can't really easily do just on your own in a room, partly because of the noise, but partly because you just need experience on how to release like that. You know, so there's an assortment of different emotional expression exercises that I teach. It's quite intense working with emotions directly like that. It's hard to do it in YouTube. If I was to get a load of people who've never done any therapy before to start doing screaming and shouting in their room, you know, it could trigger a lot of stuff for them. And it's also to just be practical, you know, when you've done a lot of emotional expression, you need to hug people and stuff. You need physical closeness to kind of heal over stuff afterwards. So it's not something you can easily just do on your own.
Yes.
A lot of people want to work on their own because they're a bit scared to show themselves in a group. And that's okay. You can do a certain amount of work on your own. But at some point, you probably need to also, you know, come out and get into a bit of a group situation as well. You can do just bio on your own, and you can, over time, it can clear a lot, but it will be much quicker and much easier if you can get yourself into the group room and start to get with expression as well, you know.
It's like what I'm doing with that inner child work, you know, it sounds very similar to what you call emotional expression, because you just really like releasing and feeling and expressing that very strong stuck emotions. So yeah, sometimes it felt like a bit overwhelming when I was doing by myself. And what you said is like you really feel then that you would like to have somebody there just to hug you, just to be close, just to like support you during the process. So yeah.
And partly, you know, it's a lot of the emotional expression exercises you do with other people. You need other people around to do them. You know, when you work with anger, it's much stronger when you're facing someone, because mostly what triggers anger in this is other people. You know, it's stuff to do with other people.
Are you still running workshop with emotional, or you just stopped doing that because you don't?
I still run workshops with a lot of emotional expression. I do some straight bioenergetics groups, which are just bio, but usually I'll put some level of emotional expression in, because it's not in the one-day ones, but in the longer ones, I'll usually put some in. And I do some workshops which are deliberately a mix. I run a weekend called rebirthing, bioenergetics, and emotional expression. Rebirthing is like a breathwork technique that you do lying down. It's quite different from emotional expression or from bioenergetics. You know, there's different techniques that you can use to release stuff from the body. Bioenergetics there's a lot of different areas that it's working with you physically and emotionally in terms of your whole psyche. You know, some of it's putting you right back into womb states or early childhood states and stuff like that, just being born kind of states. Some of it is just working on areas of the body where there's a lot of holding. Some of it is working on areas of the body where we shut down and block, you know, emotional centers. So it covers a lot of, bioenergetics is pretty big, it's pretty wide.
There are people that experiencing really a lot of difficult emotions, and they know that they just can't deal with it, and they try to find a solution. But there are also people that just feel like they don't feel anything, you know, like they feel really blocked. They don't experience nearly any emotions, negative or positive. So how bioenergetic could work for these people?
Well, it's the same practice really, because yes, sometimes you're overwhelmed with emotions, or it's too much for what you're used to, and other times, there's no emotional response. Yeah. And at their core, both of those are ways of dealing with trauma. You know, either to just shut them out completely, like depression is kind of like that in a way, to just shut the whole system down so you hardly feel anything. But of course, then you don't have any life energy. And anxiety is a little more the opposite, where the emotions are coming up so much and you're trying to push them down with your mind. It's creating anxiety. But bioenergetics will work for people as well. And so will, you know, rebirthing or emotional expression, because at some point, you know, even if you don't experience anger and haven't experienced anger for ages, if you keep practicing in the group room with people with anger, at some point it'll come back, because it's in there. It's being triggered in your brain. Anger is triggered anytime you experience a sense of invasion on any level, like someone coming too close or trying to squash you at an ego level or whatever. Anger is triggered by the brain. It's a natural response. And so it will be being triggered. But if you're not feeling it's because somewhere you've learned to damp it all down. And all you need to do is practice and keep practicing, and it'll come back online. You know, it's like it'll start again.
We sometimes like overreacting with anger, but I think we still do need that emotional reaction, which is anger, don't you think? Because sometimes where our boundaries are like crossed, or our needs not met in a very important way, it seems, you know, good to feel anger.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you want to feel anger because it's naturally being triggered whenever there's a sense of invasion on any level. You know, anger is triggered. You know, even if you hear about one of your friends being mugged or burgled or something like that, you know, anger is triggered because there's a sense of invasion there, and that's what triggers it. But when it becomes a problem is when you've got a big charge of anger in your body which you haven't expressed. Sometimes you find yourself overreacting, you know, and so your kids make a little drama and you end up really screaming at them, and later on you feel really shit about yourself, you know, because there's a big charge trying to come out, and it's just giving too much to even small situations. You find yourself overacting. That's something where a lot of clients come through that as well, realizing they're getting too angry. If you've got a lot of unprocessed emotions in your body, in your in-tray, once you clear that, then your emotional responses are more normal. You still get angry, but you get angry appropriately. You've got to get rid of the backlog from the past, and then your emotions are more natural and just flow. You can have very intense negative emotions, but you know, they come and then they go, you know, they're flowing. When we're used to controlling, we tend to lock at certain points, and we don't trust to allow the natural flow of emotions, you know, but we'll come out the other side, you know, so we get stuck at a certain point in the emotional journey. People who are blocked with their anger often get sucked in a kind of despairing, collapsing state, you know, but when you can experience anger, then anger is part of a cycle of healing.
It sounds important what you just said, that the anger is the important part of healing process, is it?
It's often the most overlooked part of the healing process, you know. People tend to some people just want to avoid anger, you know, and it's a big important part. You know, a very famous American psychologist called Liz Kubler-Ross back in the 80s, I think she made this thing called the grieving process, or the cycle of grief, or cycle of something like that. And anger was a big element of it. She identified like 5 stages with people who'd experienced a death in family or a deep sense of loss, that the mind would go through a series of 5 stages and then come out accepting the situation, you know, including despair, depression, anger. I can't remember the whole sequence. You know, that's an example. And if the anger is missing somewhere inside, it's hard to really process. Like, people try from a mental level often to forgive people who've done horrible things to them. But if you can't allow the anger as well, the forgiveness doesn't really go very deep. You know, when you can express the anger, then forgiveness seems to just happen naturally. It's like if your emotions flow naturally and you're emotionally pretty natural, then things like forgiveness happen naturally once you've gone through an emotional process.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm really grateful for you for sharing all this stuff.
Pleasure to talk to you, and I hope you're doing good.